Alright, so let's look at scales. Scales are an ordered set of notes that work together using whole and half steps. So now, just looking at this definition, it may seem a bit confusing, but trust me, it's not that complicated. So if we look at an octave, we have 12 notes in that octave. So between the low C and the higher C, we have 12 notes in between. And if you don't know what any of this means, I go over it in my last video. So, we have 7 natural notes and 5 accidental notes. If we play a random set of these notes, it's not going to sound that good. Like, it doesn't sound that good. So we use scales to tell us which notes are right in a song. Now, I say right in a song, but you do not need to always use a scale. You could take notes from outside a scale. That's called modal interchange, and it's a bit of a more complicated topic, which we will learn about later on. But all you need to know is that you don't need to follow a scale. Think of it as a guideline of what you should look to stay within. It's basically just a template, right? You could go outside of it, but you still want to use it as a reference point. So, we have two types of scales. We have a minor scale and a major scale. This is the major scale. So the major scale is often described as brighter, happier, less serious. And then this is the minor scale. Right, so it has a bit of a darker tone, a sadder feel. There's actually 3 types of minor scales, but we'll look at that in a separate video. Okay, so here we have the characteristics of the scale. We have the major scale, which is brighter in tone, and the minor scale, which is darker. If you don't hear it, just think of it, sadder music tends to be in the minor scale. And the happier music tends to be in the major scale. That was a really bad example, but you could kind of see the difference. So, what gives these scales their characteristics? It's the whole and half steps which the scales are built on. So, there's a formula to build these scales. So, let's say I start on D. I don't know how to make a D major scale from D. So, what do? We use this formula. It goes whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. What does this mean? It basically means we go up by a whole step, then another whole step, and then a half step, and then a whole step, whole step, whole step, and then a half step, and then we get a major scale. Doesn't matter what key we're in. So if you don't know what a whole step or a half step is, we look over that in my other video from before. So let's start in D. So we go whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And so that's how we get our major scale. So now let's say we start on E flat. So we'll just use the same formula. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And then we get a major scale. Okay, so let's look at the minor scale. The minor scale goes whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole, whole. Let's start on the E. So on this E, we have whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole, whole. So that's our minor scale. So let's say we want to start on G sharp. So we'll do the same thing. So we'll go whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole, whole. Oops, I did it wrong. So you could use these formulas to find a major or minor scale on any key. You just have to remember that when you start, the first note doesn't count as a whole step or a half step. It just counts as your root note. So what is your root note? The root note is the note you start on. So let's say how I was starting on that D before, and then that E, then a G sharp. That's the root note of the scale. So this would be a C minor scale, because C is my root note. Now let's do an E minor. E is my root note, so it's an E minor scale. This is the note that feels like home. So if we're playing the C minor scale, we really want to resolve up to that C major scale. we really want to resolve up to that C. Scales are basically the foundation of music. These are very important to know because it really helps you understand why the music sounds like the way it sounds. Because we have this bright scale, then we have this minor scale. So we really use these scales to give us a guideline on what to use. So scales are basically just the ordered notes that we use. And they're the foundation of melodies, chords, and the keys that we play. So that's all you need to know for scales, and thank you for watching.